Hey guys, Henning and Morten here from FlippedNormals. In this video we are showing you a free chapter from our newly released UV mapping tutorial where we cover how to UV map a full character. We go through all the steps from the first cuts to the final layouts. We're also covering a lot of the fundamentals as well, like why do you actually do the layouts?
This isn't just a step-by-step how to UV map a character, because that exists for free everywhere.
On our channel as well.
Yeah, so you can check that out. But it's more the kind of techniques you would use in a production, whether it's for games or it's for VFX commercials, whatever it is. This is going to teach you the basics and the fundamentals so that you can sort of repeat those steps again and again.
Yeah, we're also covering, we have a checklist as well with UV principles, which you should follow in every single character you're doing until you learn how to break them, which you can then do.
Which we also do in the tutorial.
Which you also do. So it's just an overall series which will teach you basically production principles on how to do it as well. It finishes off with a super quick and dirty way as well. Mm-hmm. Just everything goes off the rails and you need to just quickly get something out.
So yeah, sit back, relax, and enjoy this first free chapter.
We aren't just going to be covering how to do seam cuts and all the technical stuff. We're going to be covering more the principles of UV mapping. Whatever software you're using, this is going to be applicable. If you're in Modo, Blender, or Maya, that's basically irrelevant.
And you can find tutorials on YouTube that are free on how to cut up, but this is more to give you guys an overview of a production workflow, best practices, so you know your UVs are up to scratch, basically. Yeah,
like with a lot of our tutorials, we're going to be talking more about why you do something as opposed to just what to do. So in this chapter specifically, we are going to be covering some of those conventions. We have a UV mapping checklist. This comes along in your directory, which you can just find under content. So we're just going to be covering some of these in this video. We're going to be showing some in Mari, some in and some in Maya. Like we said, it doesn't really matter which one. Doesn't really matter which package you're using. We're just going to be sticking to. We're going to stick to Maya, but it really doesn't matter. So, the first thing we are really going to be talking about is: Are you optimizing your layout for humans or for computers? This might sound a bit weird, but basically it means, are you optimizing the space for in the UV editor here for quick rendering, or are you optimizing for quick texture painting? This layout here is a good example of quick texture painting. Everything is nice and symmetrical. Everything has the same texel density, just meaning the scales are exactly the same ratio. You can see that in the viewport. Nothing is bigger than other things. Everything is perfectly symmetrical, and we have a center line going through everything. This makes it very easy to paint. It's a very logical layout, which means, you can probably look at this layout and see what stuff is. This is most likely arm, most likely leg, the ears are right here, the torso, and then the back. There is no real ambiguity. Makes it very quick for actual texture painting, but you can also see it's terrible for actual optimization.
Yeah, we're lacking there's a lot of empty space that could be utilized. Yeah. And for a production, if it's in commercials or visual effects, then this would probably be fine. Yeah. It's not how many UDIMS you use and how you optimize them isn't always as important, but for games, that would be a different matter. Like you would want to utilize every piece of every pixel in there, right? You want to optimize that because you don't want to use UDIMS.
So for games would be absolutely terrible.
You'd be fired.
Yeah, you'd be fired day one. But it looks so nice. Yeah, you'd be gone. Can't be used. But yeah, in VFX and even for personal project, whatever you're doing, it's not necessarily so much optimizing the render times because you're doing one frame and that frame has to be rendered once.
Yeah.
But in games, you're talking about 60 FPS.
Yeah.
So it's so important that stuff is optimized there.
Yeah, and also when you're talking about games, everything counts. If the amount of cuts that you have count, like you want on something like the face, we have a base mesh that's made by Vincent Meunier from CCP Games, and we talked to him about his base mesh and how he laid out the UVs, and he really emphasized like one cut. Yeah. You just want one cut or two cuts or whatever, as few cuts as possible, because every cut there's another part that needs to be computed. Yeah. So you just want to optimize it as much as possible. Whereas this, we're optimizing it for less stretching and making it easier to paint areas, basically.
Yeah. It's like if you have a good layout, this is something a lot of people don't really know. If you have a good layout, you can optimize texturing process maybe by twice. I worked with layouts before, which where I've been a texture artist, and I didn't really have much say in the layout. It was already, the UVs were already done, and it was a real pain in the ass to actually texture.
Yeah.
Because stuff just wasn't laid out in a convenient way. But when I've done my own textures, I can literally paint twice as fast, just because of it's optimized. It's optimized for me. So in that case, I'd rather have paint maps twice as fast than to shave off like 30 seconds on a render. So we're going to be covering more of that later on as well. We're going to be showing some examples in Mari, just the difference between the two, and but we're just going to move on now to some of the other checklists. So one of them is no overlaps. This means that you don't want, let's say you have the ear like this, you don't want this to overlap like so, or just have a little bit overlapping. This is something you often see where you just have a little bit of overlapping. We're going to be showing this in Mari why this is problematic.
Yeah, and you can even have that within the islands themselves. Like if your UVs aren't unfolded properly, they can sort of like unfold in on themselves sometimes. So that's also something to keep an eye out
like
for.
This.
Yeah.
Though that said, you can do overlaps if it's deliberate.
Yeah.
We have an example with some teeth we're going to show you in Mari in a bit. Also, another one is nothing should ever go outside the UV tile. This is called, we're going to be covering this in a different chapter, the UDIM layout. But basically, one of these tiles can be called a UDIM. So basically, nothing should go outside the UDIM, which just means like if you have something very close to the edge and you're talking about this is very problematic.
Yeah.
So you probably aren't going to be talking about so much in these directions, but you're probably going to have something close to the layout where you have like a little one. So I've seen this where you have literally one pixel, and one pixel is going to screw it up. Mari is going to go, whoa! Or whatever it is you're painting in. Doesn't really matter.
And sometimes it can be quite hard to spot. So if you get in the habit of not having your UVs be too close to the UDIM borders, that's not a problem you're really going to run into.
Yeah.
But keep it in mind.
And this also means as well, don't place it right here as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, don't place it too close, because this is the same way with another one, which is don't keep them too close to each other. So don't keep them like this. You can optimize some stuff if you really, really have to optimize it. But let's say you have to blur the textures. Now you need a little bleed around it. So if you blur this island, it's going to bleed over to this one. So also it's really hard to select stuff as well. If you need to make masks or something in Photoshop or whatever it is, it's really hard to actually do that. And then you need everything to be in the same with the same textile density. It just means everything has the same scale. Currently, you can see how the head has the same scale as the body. It just means the little squares, mostly the same size. This means that whenever you're tiling something across, or if you're painting something, everything has the same resolution. If we were to do this, you can see now the resolution is completely different. And this is quite problematic unless you know what you're doing.
Yeah, there might be cases where you will definitely need this. Where you have a close-up shot and your character is wearing clothes, but the hands are visible. You could feasibly have the head be twice the size in terms of the textile density, and then have the hands be lower res, for example, if you weren't going to see those as close-up.
Absolutely.
That's definitely an option.
Yeah. Next one is keep the orientation of the scales the same. This is going to become clear once we're looking in Mari. But if you look in the front view now, everything is kind of, let's remove the grid, everything is just kind of the same. It kind of flows into each other.
Yeah.
So this is one of these where you're like, yeah, of course it should be that way. And we've been teaching recently where we had this debate, should we show the efficient way of doing it, which took us years to figure out, or should we just let the students do their thing? And when we're showing this layout, we were just presenting this final distilled product. And we're just like, check this out, the brilliance. And the students are like, all right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
Yeah, but it only makes sense because we told you.
Yeah, you don't get it.
So this is another one of those where, do you optimize for computers or do you optimize for people?
Yes.
So having a UVs laid out in the same direction is definitely more optimized for humans.
Yes.
For humans, for people, I don't know. Like, and also
sounds weird.
when you're texture painting, because it just makes a texture artist's life a lot easier if things flow in the same direction.
This is very problematic if stuff is like this, some is upside down, some is like this, the leg is the other way. This is something I used to do a lot before. I used to optimize the crap out of it. But this here might give you issues. It technically is not. Like, it's not going to fail in the sanity checks. It's not going to render slower or faster or anything. If this is like this or this is like that, it's exactly, from the computer point of view, it doesn't care.
Yeah.
But from a human point of view, it matters.
The humans.
It sounds a bit weird, right? Talking about the humans, like as separate species. But, well, it is what it is. Next one is keep it logical. This is kind of what we alluded to in the beginning of that. It just needs to make sense. Like, the way I laid this out, the ears are up here, the torso is here, the arm is here, hand is here. If you were to do the opposite, where you were to move the arm and foot around, now this is no longer logical, because now you're selecting this and you're like, oh man,
yeah,
they selected the foot, and it's just really annoying. Particularly if you aren't doing the texturing. If you're just doing the layout and you give this to a texture artist, it's going to be, he might not even realize this until a few days afterwards, and then he's going to come with a baseball bat. Very, very uncomfortable or annoying to paint with this. But so this is obviously where there's just swapped, but you have layouts where they just don't make sense at all. They're just a huge mess, and that's very annoying.
Yeah.
Next one is you want to make sure your maps are symmetrical. This just means you can paint one side and just flip it over. This is where one of the examples of you can speed up your texturing so much. If you're doing something like a substance, then you have real painting or real symmetry painting. But even so, it's still an advantage just to keep it symmetrical. Just because you can now, if you have to paint something in Photoshop, it's super easy. If you want to paint in Mari or whatever, even if you're using this for rigging or whatnot, because you can also use UV sets for rigging.
Yeah.
Now you can just very quickly just mirror from left to right. And this is something people don't really talk about, is test your map before you start texturing. If you're done with the map now, you don't just go and export it and then just start painting. Bring it into Mari, bring it into Painter, and test it out. Spend like 20 minutes on it. Just try something out. And now you would realize that, oh crap, this wouldn't work. So now you got to bring this back to this point. So I optimize my layouts a lot. It's kind of like when you do your UVs, that's the first pass of the UVs. And then you get some feedback on it. Maybe the hand shouldn't be like that. You figure out a reason why that's not optimal. You want it to be like that. And it's a lot cheaper to spend 20 minutes in the beginning optimizing it there than it is to realize that after you actually start texturing.
Yeah, and every time you go through production, you go through these exact same things. You were like, we should really do this at the early stage. And some supervisor goes like, no, we just need to finish it.
Yeah.
And like, oh, are you sure? We're definitely good. No, just keep going. And then 6 months later, they go like, yeah, we need to change it. Oh, now we need to change it. Oh, okay, let me just spend a month now, because now everyone needs to be updated. It's
a real pain in the ass to update the UVs. It's maybe not so much, you can always reproject it back and forth, but the reprojection in Mari is notoriously broken, and it's just annoying. You shouldn't have to do it.
If UVs change, then, textures can change. Rigging might have to change. Yeah. There's a lot of things that
it's really annoying.
Have to change.
So the last point on this list is use UDIMS as selection sets. And now you're like, what the hell does that mean? So we are going to be covering UDIMS later on. But the UDIM is basically that. Now you have the body in one UDIM, and now you have the leg in another. You wouldn't do it like this, but this is an example. So now you have one separate map for the leg. This means that in Mari now, you can just select this UDIM, and the leg is selected. This is again one of these, that's logical. Yeah, because we told you. This is another example of what people do. They have like a hand, or maybe they have an ear. They're optimizing for just texture space. So now they have all sorts of random stuff in it, where you have you're just doing like something like this. So now when you select a UDIM in Mari, you have this, where you just have a bunch of random stuff selected, which, it might be better for texture space, but it's terrible for texture painting.
Yeah.
And UDIMs are used for so many things. If you need to split up your character in ZBrush later on, then you can split it up based on the UDIM, at least if you've done it correctly. If you were to split it up based on this UDIM now, you would see something like this, where this is what you would split up. So the right foot would be connected to the top of the left hand.
Optimal.
Yeah, optimal. But if you only have this, now this makes sense. This is, you can totally work with this.
Yeah.
So that's basically our checklist. Let's look at some more practical examples of this in Mari. So we're going to look at a few different ones here. We have a layout. Let's go into, and we aren't going to be painting anything at all in Mari in this video. This is the only chapter we're going to be using Mari, and it's purely to show you what we mean. So let's look at the bad layout, and let's look at a good layout, and look at the slightly optimized one. This is a terrible layout. Let's bring back some wireframes so you can see what's going on, and let's just disable the title. So this is what the layout here looks like. This is something I've seen this in production, particularly for students, where everything is just messy. This layout here makes no sense whatsoever. Let's say you have to paint something here in 2D, and you need to find the face. You're like, oh man, where is the face? Oh, cool, the face is here. And now, if you want to paint like a straight line across it, yeah, sure, you can do that because it's the face. But what if it's like the thigh or something? You don't know which one of these is the thigh. Is this the thigh? Maybe? Oh, and now I'm painting from top. I'm painting top to bottom, and it goes from bottom to top. Very messy. Is this the front or the back? Well, that was the back. Maybe this is the front, and now I'm painting from top to bottom, and it goes from bottom to top. This is just a huge mess. So if you were given something like this, obviously you can't.
Yeah, whoever made this should be fired.
Yeah, and that would be me. And then we have some of this, which is like a nice little overlapping. So let's see what happens here. We're painting on this, and now we're just painting on one side, and it paints at the same time here as it does on the hand. So this is impossible to work with. A lot of times you might have this where you just have subtle overlaps. You're not really sure what's going on, but maybe you're painting. Actually, it's better to show in the 3D view. You're painting like here on the back of the arm, and then suddenly it's showing up here. Infuriating. Doing a little painting here, and it just shows up everywhere. Can't do that. Can't have overlaps at all. So we have the same thing here. Can't have overlaps. Terrible stuff. Then also, if we use tiles are used all the time when texture painting, just because you can very quickly get a quick result out of it. We just have a tileable map, which is nothing special, and just tiled a few times across it. This is a huge mess. It looks a bit cool. It looks a bit random and nice, but
that's not the desired effect.
No, we don't want random and cool. We want predictable. So let's compare this to the good layout. Now you can see here, this makes sense now. The layout here, everything goes from top to bottom, and it follows the shape of this. It's now predictable what this is going to do. So if you have something like this, now you can use with one tile, you can get coverage of the entire thing.
Yeah.
I worked on a movie called A Monster Calls Samir. So I did modeling, and the texture artist specifically requested the layout, the UV layout, to be like this, because she just had a tile like this and did basically the same thing. Huge tree monster, bark texture. Just do one tile and you get coverage. Obviously, there are still issues with it, but you can fix the seams and you can work with that. So this is really why you want the direction to be the same. Let's just go back to the other one, to the bad layout. And now this is messy as hell. The way you would fix this would be if you had this layout. Let's say you wanted the torso to be straight up and down. You go and rotate it until it's straight up and down, and then you would mask it out. And then you do the same for the thigh and for the hand and everything, and you would just mask it out. So you would end up with like 15 tiles, and if you're changing everything, it's messy as hell.
You can see how this would speed up your workflow if you have a UV layout where the direction is the same everywhere. It's a texture artist could just come in, throw on a tileable, and then 80% of the work is done.
Yeah.
It's just going to speed up their work so much more, and it doesn't cost you as a modeler much to do that. No. It's just just rotate it, make sure everything kind of makes sense in terms of the direction, and you'll make everyone's life easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever I've been texturing, I've always just based it off tiles, because you can get so far so quickly.
Yeah,
and a lot of times as well, obviously these seams are a bit extreme. We also deliberately chose a texture which had crazy amount of directionality into it, like this. But if you have a texture which doesn't have that much directionality, you can get very very far just with tiles. So this is why I'm so adamant about some of these rules, because tileables are the really king when you're texturing. Another one here is that you can see the texture density is crazy. Like the head is tiny. So now there is a lot less resolution here. And you have something like the hand, which is a lot bigger. You see how sharp and crisp this is? And then we go to the head, and it's just a huge mess. But if you go to the good layout again, now you can see everything has basically the same size. Everything goes up and down. It's symmetrical. It's nice. The hand is the same size. You could easily blend the hand into the arm in this one. While in the bad one, you can't. Like, you literally can't blend these two together. It will be so painful. So, two of the most important ones when it comes to texture painting is keep the texture density the same and keep the orientation exactly the same. So that took me years to truly learn.
Yeah, and there will be places like the connection of the arm is always going to be strange because you basically have a cylinder that is extruded out from the body.
Yeah.
And the direction just will change there. But then at least you can keep the direction the same going down the arm and into the hand. And then you will have to do some fixing up between the body and the arm.
Yeah.
But, those are small things to fix compared to the entire body.
Yeah, exactly. We also have overlapping. Let's look at that. We have some teeth here. And they're all the way over here. No, wait, where are we? Teeth overlap. There we go. Okay, cool. So here they are. So this is something that you can do if you want to really optimize for games or something. You can overlap them. This just means that if you can paint one tooth and all the other teeth will get the texture. This is super cool. It's kind of like it looks kind of like a super symmetry where now they all have the same one. And in a lot of cases, this would work. For VFX, you would never do this because then you need precision. You need one tooth to be unique. But if you need something quick, this is a great way of doing it. But just be aware of the consequences of it. That means if somebody's like, "Hey, can you make this tooth here a bit different?" You're like, "Yeah, cool." Now all the other ones have it as well. So there's a huge trade-off to having overlaps. The advantage, obviously, it requires a lot less texture space.
Yeah.
So if you can just have one tooth, one eye, whatever it is. But massively problematic if you need control. This, on the other hand, let's make a new one. Now we have every single tooth has its own unique UV space. So now you can paint unique textures for all of them. But obviously, this is also a lot slower to do because you got to paint all of them. But this has been laid out in a way in Maya so that you could take this into Photoshop. You could just paint one of these and you could copy paste this onto the other ones. This is something I've done in Nuke before, actually, if you have access to that, or something like Fusion or whatever it is you're using, where you just paint one, you lay out a UDIM, a layout, which copies this texture onto the other ones. Because this is evenly spaced and very easy to reproduce.
Yeah.
So now you just paint one, bring it into Nuke, and it just copies it over automatically to the other ones. And this means that you have the speed of only painting one, but you have the flexibility of full control of everything.
Well, alternatively, I guess you could have you could do two layouts. You do one, which is the overlap for the teeth. Get that all onto all the teeth.
Yeah.
Then make a separate layout, which is this layout, and then you have full control afterwards.
You could totally do that as well. You just project it.
Yeah, exactly. But with this layout here, like Henning is saying, you can basically just paint one tooth, duplicate it over to the others. Yeah. So you still have the... it's still accessible in the way that you can just speed up your workflow by painting one tooth, but you can still customize every tooth if you need to.
Yeah, exactly. It all goes back to do you want to optimize it for computers or for humans?
Yeah.
One is better because it gives you control. The other one is faster to do.
Yeah.
There is always trade-offs for it. The faster render goes, the faster the texture painting goes. There are often trade-offs in terms of the actual speed for that. So this pretty much concludes chapter 1, where we've just covering all the conventions. In the next ones, we're going to be covering some actual tools
on
how to do it.